So let's get this show going. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Good day, good afternoon, good evening to everybody, depending on where you are and wherever you're located. I'm Ileana Rojas. I'm the Chief Development Officer for ALPFA's Boston chapter, and it is an absolute honor for me to welcome you to the 16th Annual Latina Summit. Now, this is, and I just realized, give me 1 second, because now this is moved somewhere. Hold on 1 second. That's what happens. That's why we're resilient, right? Okay, there we go. I'm sorry, my screen just went all a little bit crazy. Okay. This is our 16th Annual Latina Summit with the topic of building resilience, which is a strength that I personally believe that every Latina woman has. But not every one of us realizes it or embraces it. And it is our hope that after this event, we leave you inspired, empowered, and with 1 or 2 clear actions that will help you own and embrace that resiliency within you. Now, let's face it, the last couple of years, our worlds have been turned completely upside down, and we've had to figure out how to adapt and how to make ends meet out of our continuously changing environments. But I think when I think about our heritage as Latinas, as Latinos, as Latinx, we've been constantly adapting and making ends meet and figuring things out in our changing environments for centuries. Like, this is no new news for us. That's the reality. And I do believe that it's in our blood. Resiliency is in our blood. Like, if I think about our abuelas, our mothers, our tias, right? And all the journey and the things that they've had to go through to get us here to where we are today. Those journeys have been full of resiliency and courage and a lot of great things and strengths that they have within them. And that is why I personally believe that all Latinas are resilient by nature. We just need to reconnect with that part of us and embrace it and use it as a fuel to help us create the impact that we're meant to do. And that's why this event makes me personally so excited, because the lineup of speakers that we have for you today, and also for those of you that will be joining us tomorrow in person in Boston, because this is a 2-day event where today is virtual, tomorrow is in person. That's why I'm so excited, because that lineup of speakers is just as resilient as it gets, and they're going to be sharing with us their stories, their tips, their best practices, a lot of really rich and empowering information. So I'm hopeful that after today, you're going to leave empowered and inspired to embrace your resilience. Now, it does require a lot of people to put an event like this one, especially when it's 2 days, it's 2 different platforms. We haven't been in person now for quite some time. So it does require a lot of people to make this happen. So I want to thank my team. You're going to meet them throughout today, and also if you join us tomorrow. But it also takes partners that help us put this together. And that's why I want to be very grateful and say thank you so much to our partner for this event, State Street, because we couldn't have done this without you. And for that, we have Janet Ladino Otero, who's joining us today and will also be helping us tomorrow. Janet, thank you in the name of from State Street for helping us put this event together.
Thank you so much, Ileana. And as you said, let's all be resilient. But anyway, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am more than grateful to be here today and welcome everyone to the ALPFA Latina Summit 2022. As you mentioned, we have a virtual component and an in-person component. Today's virtual part of the program for this year, we celebrate, as you said, women resiliency. And we have the honor and privilege to count with the participation of remarkable women. We will hear about their experiences and how they face challenges. Hope you enjoy those conversations. We women have built resiliency every day, accepting the day-to-day challenges in every aspect of our lives, family, career, neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. Those difficult experiences teach us something about ourselves. We view changes as challenges rather than threats. Let's keep working on that resiliency by staying connected, building strong relationships with friends and family, making every day meaningful, and remaining hopeful, be proactive, and most importantly, take care of yourself. Let's help others that have come to this country and need guidance on how to be successful in their careers. Many can use that kind of hand from us. I had that hand and guidance from friends that took me under their wing and gave me a glimpse on how I needed to spread my own wings. And they show me how to be resilient. Let's advocate for those who are behind us. State Street is proud to be hosting the Women of ALPFA programming today and tomorrow's with the in-person component. That being said, let's start with the agenda. Hope you all enjoy.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeanette, for that. And thank you, Ileana, for that warm welcome. Hello to all my ALPFA Boston members, friends, and allies. It's really such a pleasure to see you all here this evening. And Jeanette just reminded me morning and afternoon for some, because you're joining from all over the map, which is really exciting. My name is Isis Ortiz Belton, and I'm the ALPFA Boston president. And I want to welcome you all to our 16th annual Women of ALPFA Boston Latina Summit. It's really hard to believe that it's been 16 years. And throughout that entire period, there's been a lot that has been happening at our chapter. I'm really proud to say that Women of ALPFA has come a long way since its inception, and we continue to pave the way for a better and stronger future for Latina power in the US. Women of ALPFA is dedicated to the success of Latinas throughout, through leadership development, networking, and mentoring opportunities. Our goal is really to empower and encourage other Latinas to reach their full potential and really become trailblazers in their respective industries. And perhaps I might be a little bit biased, right? But I do believe that the future is Latina. When we think about our society today, and I'm going to start speaking numbers, so bear with me. We have roughly 58.9 million Hispanics, representing nearly 18% of the US population. And that number is projected to increase to 28% by 2060. Similarly, for us Latinas, we account for 17% of the US population. And in that same vein, that is projected to increase also to 27% by 2060. Between 2016 and 2026, the amount of Latinas in the workforce itself is projected to increase 33%. I mean, if you think about just those numbers alone, that is a lot of Latina power. But it is also in that same vein and very true that we are significantly still underpaid, and we're ill-represented in the corporate boardrooms, right? Latinas working full-time earn a mere 55 cents for every dollar that white non-Hispanic men earn. And we represent only about 4.3% of the total management positions in the US, only 1% of Fortune 1000 board seats. And those numbers are, sad, really, when we think about it. Clearly, this just shows that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And it's really one of the reasons why Women of ALPFA Boston convenes annually for this marquee event that's really designed to celebrate and amplify the voices of Latinas who've made significant contributions to their workplaces and communities, and also to provide Latina professionals with a chance to network and to gain access to leadership development opportunities. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight and really celebrating the power of resiliency. I think it's a perfect word to describe and really capture the essence of a lot of our journeys that we've been through. For those of you who are joining ALPFA Boston tonight for the first event, I assure you there's a lot more where this came from. And I encourage you to visit our website and become an ALPFA Boston member to really gain access to what we warmly refer to as hashtag the ALPFamilia. There will be a QR code that will be visible on the screen to share. Our mission is really to provide opportunities for leadership development, community engagement, and networking for all Latino men and women across the nation to help propel their careers and livelihoods. And our programs really do empower, they connect, they equip all Latinos, and we provide the resources to really achieve that personal and professional success. And with 161 student chapters, about 47 professional chapters across US and Puerto Rico, and more recently Canada, which I like to brag about. Canada. We recently opened up some chapters in Canada. You'll really become part of a growing national network of over 100,000 members, and that is Latinx and allies alike. So I promise you it'll just be a decision you'll never regret joining ALPFA Boston as a member. So welcome again, and I hope you all enjoy the fierce lineup of Latina leaders who will share a little bit about their personal stories today and tomorrow. And I hope to see some of you in person tomorrow. Carola, I think I kick it back to you.
Yes. Welcome, everyone. My name is Carola Leiva. I'm the director of Women of ALPFA Boston. And as Izzy mentioned, our goal is to empower and elevate Latinas to reach their full potential. I'm so excited about this year's Latina Summit, which is an opportunity to celebrate Latinas, our contributions, and our success within the workplace and society. This year's event is dedicated to providing valuable resources and career developments for us, Latinas professionals, and for allies, of course. This year's topic, as Ileana mentioned, is about building resilience. What an incredible topic, given all the challenges and adversity that we have all experienced in the last couple of years. At the same time, I know, in the same way that Ileana mentioned, I know Latinas, we are such a good example of resilience when facing adversity. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the moderator of the first session. She is unstoppable. She wants to redefine leadership. She is the founder and CEO of Unstoppable Latinas, Paulette Piñero.
Hi, Carola. I'm so excited that you welcome me to today's chat. Yay. So let's talk about walking in your purpose. Like Carola said, my name is Paulette Piñero, founder and CEO on Unstoppable Latina. But today is not about me, because I can't wait to introduce you to the amazing, another unstoppable Latina, Valeria Aloe. But before Valeria joins me, I need to tell you all about Valeria, because she's a powerhouse Latina. And we're going to talk about resiliency. We're going to talk about so many things. So let me introduce you to this amazing Latina. Valeria Aloe is a speaker, entrepreneurship coach, award-winning author of Uncolonized Latinas, Transforming Our Mindset and Rising Together. And I have my book here. Like, I'm ready. This is like, they say you never meet your heroes. I am. I love Valeria. Valeria is also the creator of a mindset transformation and behavioral change global movement called Rising Together, that through workshops, keynotes, and coaching supports Latinas to unlearn cultural ways of thinking and behaviors that hold us back from succeeding in spaces of visibility, leadership, and wealth creation. Oh, so powerful to start with Valeria. A first generation to college and to corporate spaces, Valeria worked 20 plus years in brand management, business development, and finance in leading companies across 7 countries. 7. I'm telling you, it's a badass. These include Procter & Gamble, Citibank, Reckitt Benckiser, and PricewaterhouseCoopers. Her work with the Latino community has earned her several awards, including, escuchen esto, Top 50 Women in Business in New Jersey in 2020, and 5th most influential Hispanic in New Jersey in 2021. Her award-winning book, Uncolonized Latinas, has recently been acknowledged with a gold medal by Golden Door Awards in partnership with Icongo and United Nations, and gold medal by BookFest and the grand prize at the Firebird Book Awards. She holds degrees in business administration and finance from Universidad Católica Argentina, an MBA from the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth, and a master in spiritual science. She is currently pursuing a doctorate in spiritual science. To find more information about Valeria's book, her work, I encourage you to visit her website, www.valeriaaloe.com, to learn more about her book, speaking, and to join the Rising Together movement. So I want to welcome Valeria to the stage. Yes, Valeria.
Hola, hola. Oh, gracias. I'm so moved. First of all, thank you for such a loving introduction. I don't think I have been introduced with so much love ever. So thank you. Yeah, thank you. I was almost crying there. So thank you. And I'm so thankful to ALPFA for this, the amazing team for this opportunity to be here today. Super grateful.
Of course, we are so thankful to have you here today. I know there's a lot of love happening on the chat right now. So I have a couple of questions for you. I love your book. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I know so many of our Latinas and allies on the chat have questions. So if you have a question, drop it on the chat. But I can't wait to talk to you, Valeria. And I want to start with really digging deeper into uncolonizing your mindset. So can you explain to us what it is to uncolonize your mindset and how it links to resilience?
Yes, and we have a lot to unpack. So I will take my time to unpack this. And essentially to uncolonize our mindset is to let go of ways of thinking that we bring from our culture and that hold us back. So remember in the beginning, we were saying we have a huge leadership gap, not enough Latinas in leadership. We have a huge wealth gap. We don't make as much money as we should or we could. So yes, we could say the system is flawed. And yes, there are issues in the system, systemic issues that need to change. But also we have the opportunity to look within and do the work. Because if we wait for the system to change, with so many Latinas entering the workforce, so many of us growing in our companies and organizations, we cannot wait for the system to change. We need to be the ones changing from within. So uncolonizing our mindsets means looking into how our beloved Latin American countries, the culture influenced us to think and behave in certain ways that hold us back. And let me give you a couple examples. It is shown in research, and I did a lot of research for the book, which was a labor of love. I interviewed more than 60 Latinas, a big group. And then I read like 80 research reports. It was like crazy. So there is a common denominator in the way we see ourselves, particularly immigrant Latinas and daughters of immigrants, in the way we were raised and how our mindset and belief system gets formed as we grow up, which happens very young. Latina women were not in the roles that we have access to. So we grew up thinking that, we were meant to be a certain type of woman, but who we are now, or the opportunities we have in front of us, being the first ones to go to college, being the first ones to go to professional spaces, type in the chat if you're the first one, and your mom did not have that opportunity, or your grandma. So you grew up, even if you're unconscious about it, you grew up thinking, this is the woman that I'm meant to be, right? So uncolonizing means looking into the ways we hold ourselves back. And there are three main ones. One is a sense of lack. We come from a culture, and we need to say this with all the letters, como se dice, which is, we come from a culture that has been labeled inferior. So I heard many times in Argentina.
Espérate. We need like deep breathe. Let's just
Yes or no?
Yeah,
I can relate to this, that our countries were labeled as inferior. Our culture is considered inferior. So growing up in Argentina, all the time I heard, this is a third world country. Now they call it developing economy, which is politically correct, but they used to call it third world country. So imagine, when I came to the US as an immigrant, I felt this small. I was like, what am I going to contribute? I don't have what it takes to succeed here. This country has all figured out. So that story as an immigrant then gets passed on to our kids. And that's a sense of cultural lack that we have, that we are not good enough. There is another one, there is the unworthiness, feeling that we are not deserving of greatness. We are not deserving of more money. We're not deserving, and this can be very unconscious. So we'll unpack this later on even more. But there is a sense in our culture that is, we are unworthy. And part of that is our past has been hidden. We do not talk about colonization. We do not talk about the trauma of the immigration. We do not talk about the trauma of children of immigrants who were the translators for their parents and all they went through. We don't talk about it. So when a part of your past is not laid out clearly on the table and we don't speak about it, it's like it never happened. And that creates a hole in us, a hole inside of us, and creates unworthiness. And then the third one is silence. How many of you heard, put your head down and do the work? Don't rock the boat. Be thankful. Be grateful.
Calladita te vemos más bonita. Oh, I can like.
Sí, calladita te ves más bonita.
Oh,
Exacto.
yes.
So, right, we heard that. So that's what it means to uncolonize the mindset. It is to let go of all those illusions, all that like fake information in a way, all of that we have in our mindsets and it's outdated. Now, what does it have to do with resilience? Why is resilience linked to this? So let me start by saying that I burnt out in 2016. And as you saw before, all of those accomplishments that look so nice, right, in a bio, but I did it wrong. I burnt out. 2016, I collapsed. So what happened is resilience can be really misunderstood in our culture, right? Because resilience in a way is, oh, I'm going to keep going. I'm bouncing back from difficulties. And oh my gosh, as Latinas, we face so many difficulties. We face a system that does not understand who we are, doesn't seem to value who we are, right? And we seem to be struggling and going against the wall, así, pegándole a la pared. Entonces, we keep going and we keep pushing, but guess what? There is a real part of resilience that I learned through burning out that I want to share with you with this. It is okay not to be okay, because we're many times in denial of what we feel emotionally, mentally, physically. That was me. I was in denial. I was not okay. I was pushing in a corporate world, but I was not okay inside. I was feeling lacking. I was feeling not good enough. So when we keep pushing, we feel we're resilient, but in a way, we need to say, the real resilience is in acknowledging that it is okay not to be okay. We need to be not afraid to see, to look within, because that's when we can heal and change. So that's how I unpacked the first question you had. We unpacked a lot.
Yes, I love that. And thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing that piece. One of the things that I feel gets lost in leadership conversations and anything around abundance and mindset and perseverance is us showing our vulnerability and showing stories. And I thank you so much for sharing that, because there is no one big path that is perfect. And the biggest transformation comes from listening to stories like yours, where you're very vulnerable with us, with all 67 people here right now, about your struggles and how you turn that into purpose and into a movement. I want to call out some of the love that is happening on the chat. Keep that going up. A lot of people connected when we were talking about being a first generation daughter of immigrants. So Leandra, first gen Colombian American, second female to graduate college. A lot of yeses and love. So true. I love it. We're powerful. Janet commented, pero calladitas ya no podemos. Nos vemos las bonitas. Speaking of. Yes. I love that. So you mentioned lack, unworthiness, and silence as the most pervasive limited cultural patterns that are holding us back, mostly unconsciously. So how does that look in our day-to-day? What are some of the specific behaviors and how do they manifest in our day-to-day lives?
Excellent. This is the most important part of the conversation, because you may say, oh, I don't feel unworthy. Because sometimes these mindsets or ways of thinking are so unconscious and so deep. These are the root of any behavior, and so deep that we don't see that. Like, I saw in the past, oh, I'm not unworthy. But, this is then when I saw my behaviors, I'm like, oh, interesting. So let me unpack for you what I have researched and how specifically this can show in your day-to-day, so that you can see, oh, if I'm doing this, I need to be working on my sense of lack. If I'm doing this, I need to be working on my sense of unworthiness, right? So first of all, let's start with unworthiness. When we feel unworthy of greatness, and let's say that you're given an opportunity or you have, a promotion or a new project at work or a new client, if you're a business owner, what we do, Latinas, is we overcompensate. We work extra hard. So we do it, we overcompensate, because so if you're finding yourself working super hard, past exhaustion, when your body just wants to go to bed and you still keep going, you need to think about what is going on here. Am I feeling unworthiness of this, unworthy of this client? So am I trying to make this client happy and, you know, trying to show them that I can? Well, what's really going on? So that's one, the overcompensation. The other one that we do a lot as Latinas, more than any other cultures, I have to say, is we disown our victories. So when somebody says, great work, we usually say, you know, many times we say, oh, I was in the right time at the right place. Or sometimes I see Latina leaders who do not take on ownership for the great work, for the great success. Instead of saying, thank you for seeing the value of this, you know, we say, oh, we find excuses like, oh yeah, but I thought this was not so great, or maybe I missed this. You think I missed this? Was that okay? So we do that a lot. We're a little apologetic. So that has a root of unworthiness as well. And the third one that I want to share with you that we all do as we saw in the statistics is we do not charge our worth. That's a key. And I went 7 years. I'm not embarrassed to say this anymore. I had to do therapy on this, okay? I went 7 years without asking for a salary increase. And of course, I was doing great work. The salary increase never came because the thing about putting your head down and doing the work, somebody will notice that's not work anymore. So 7 years without asking for a salary increase. And because I was feeling unworthy of getting more money, I said, oh, maybe I should be thankful, even thankful to be allowed to live in this country, right? Even as a US citizen, being thankful to be allowed to live in this country. That's unworthiness. We are not owning our space. So looking into lack, what we do when we feel lacking, so we covered a little bit of unworthiness. The lacking part is we usually procrastinate. So when we feel lacking, a way to not see, you know, that you may not complete the project is just not to do it, right? So we bypass opportunities. We try to check 100% of the boxes before we apply for a job or we ask for a promotion. We shy away from a new project. So we do that a lot. So, and I've been doing that a lot in the past. So when that happens is look inside. Do I feel lacking? Do I feel that I'm not good enough? Because you need to work on that. And a way to work on that is to really believe in your heart that you're resourceful, because none of us is perfect. None of us is perfect, but we can be resourceful to find the answers and we can take more risks. We are seen as a community who doesn't take enough risks. Okay, that's a reality of research. So how do we do with that? We need to believe in our hearts that we can, even if no one ever told you so, because I know for many of us, I was very lucky. My parents told me you can't do anything, but I know for many Latinas, they didn't hear that. I'm telling this to you today, you can. So you can believe in your heart that you can, and you're resourceful and will find a way. Go for it, even if you don't check the 100% of the requirements. And the third one that is my favorite is silence, our silence. You know, we are humble. We don't speak up because we don't want to rock the boat. That's a reality. And part of silence is also not saying no. That's also silence, not being true to yourself, not speaking up with your truth. We say yes to many things, right, that we shouldn't. We do not say what we really think because we don't want to hurt feelings, because we are so, we're a culture of the heart. That's who we are. We're communal. We love people. That's who we are in the Latin American countries. So we find it very hard to have a different opinion because we don't want to hurt somebody. But guess what? In the US, you are expected to have a different opinion because that elevates the final product. So those are the three most pervasive. But I want to just, if I have 1 more minute on this, to say there is a fourth one that will take another hour if I talk about it, but we need to think about this even more in our community right here. Colorism. We have colorism. That's a behavior we have in the Latino community. And I have to say, as a white Latina, I was not aware of colorism until I heard the stories of my Afro-Latina sisters. And we cried while talking about those stories. Colorism is real. Afro-Latinos are denied, underrepresented, never awarded. If you see awards, they are not represented. If you see any conference, they are not represented. So we need more Afro-Latinos. We need to find them, give them the space, and let them do their magic.
Wow, Valeria, I have read your book twice, and I've used it to navigate conversations with my therapist. around some of my own limiting beliefs and, my own personal leadership journey, but also as a Boricua born and raised and being here in the US and navigating those conversations around anti-Blackness and colorism and how to navigate those conversations with my family. And so I'm a crier. I promise I did not cry, but I am about to. And it's amazing because to hear what I've read from your words with that authenticity and vulnerability and those stories really resonates with me. And one of the things that you named as kind of like that fourth theme is that colorism and anti-Blackness.
Yes.
And thank you for naming your own privilege and how it gives you access to opportunities that Black women and Afro-Latinas don't get access to. So I would love to ask you a little bit more around that. And thank you for bringing that up because we don't talk about that enough in our comunidades and with our gente.
We don't talk about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One of the themes that comes up with uncolonizing your mindset and what you've shared, it's also about like stepping up and living your purpose. So how is living your purpose helps us become better mentors and allies to folks with intersecting identities? You kind of like already started talking about that, but como comunidad, we have so many intersecting identities. Like I am a Latina, but I am a mom, but I am not an immigrant because I'm Boricua, but I'm bisexual. And like, how does uncolonizing your mindset and living your purpose help us be better mentors and allies to other folks, even from our own communities that we might not have the same identity or have the same experiences?
I'm going to share some of my own experience in finding my own purpose, which after I burnt out, I embarked on a mission of finding a reason to live, essentially, a reason to be on this planet. I'm also a mother, a wife, a daughter, a professional. But I felt no purpose in 2016. I was so depleted. What I can tell you is that a purpose is a big word. Purpose is not a goal. It's not a goal. Purpose is a higher order. To me, personally, my purpose was very clear when I embraced that I am a soul having a human experience. And I'm not here to talk about religion, but I believe deeply in my heart that we are souls having a human experience. And that when you think about that is, why am I here on this planet? Am I here to make money? And then at some point, I'm not sure when, I will die and the money will stay here. I'm not living with that, right? So the purpose to me, it touched really my heart in 2016 when I went to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, an event here. And I was surrounded for the first time with so many Latinos looking so different from all over the place. And, that really touched my heart because it was the first time that I was with other Latinos. I was usually the only Latina in the room. And I fell in love with who we are. And my purpose was born out of that, of just walking into an event and feeling good, understanding that, it is okay to connect with how we feel. And how you feel will guide you to your purpose. When you're suffering, pushing too hard, feeling exhausted and miserable, that's not your purpose. Your purpose is supposed to fill you up and to overflow. And talking about mentorship and sponsoring, when you feel so full inside with what you're doing, it's naturally that you want to share. And the more you share, the more your heart opens up even more. So it starts to flow, the give and receive. It starts to flow in my own experience. And the purpose just, fills you in and lights you up in your life in such a way that is unavoidable that you want to share that with others. There is a sense of self-love involved in this, a sense of sharing the goodness with others. And I want to invite everybody here today to pay more attention to how you feel with what you're doing. Because when something feels really good in your life and lights you up, that could be the road to your purpose, because many people are finding for meaning today, looking for meaning. They're here like, what am I here to do? This cannot be everything there is. There has to be a higher purpose, a bigger meaning to my life. Yes, there is. And the way to find it is by following your heart and paying attention to how you feel. And also make it very intentional to be in a community and to help others. You know why? Because the Latino community, just the Latino community, 30% is younger than 18 years old. There are not enough people in positions of power, enough Latinos or even people of color in positions of power to mentor and sponsor our young Latinos. Last week, I went to a high school to speak to 15-year-olds. It was the best transformational experience I had. I had the blessing to be there with them. And I just showed up and I started to speak to them. Do that more often. Younger than 18, they really need us. Don't take, don't discount what you have to offer. Honor that. There is a lot you can share. And that's the way to find meaning in life, to find purpose in life, and to feel a life of fulfillment and to be enlightened in what you do.
Oh, I'm taking so many notes. This is quote after quote. This is warming my heart. Ingrid just shared on the chat. Thank you, Ingrid. Valeria Polet. I also believe we're colorful souls and we're here to have a human experience by helping others, starting with our own beautiful hearts.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
I
That's
love
powerful.
that.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
That's so powerful. So I want to ask you one more question, and then we have so many amazing questions that folks have been dropping on the chat. No worries, I will get to your questions too. I have them ready. So for my questions, Valeria, I want to ask you, like, in addition to reading this amazing book, cómprelo, like you need this. This is, I'm telling you, it's so powerful. I love it. It's in my top 3 books. I love it. Oh, I love this book. Siempre está aquí al ladito mío in my desk that I can open it and be like, oh, okay, gracias, Valeria. So you don't know it, but you're already like my business bestie. You don't know, you're here with me all the time, Valeria. I promise. So in addition to reading your book, what are 3 things that the Latinas today, the women today, can implement in their day-to-day to uncolonize those limiting beliefs and live more authentically?
So I'll give you a 3-step framework. Remember, I come from a corporate, so I need to give you a framework. I used to do consulting, so there's always a framework. So,
I build a framework for everything. So I appreciate that.
It helps you, the 3 steps. So yes. The first step, to be aware. To know and to embrace that it is okay not to be okay. And when something feels uncomfortable or imbalanced or something is not right, it's okay to look into that. It's okay to talk about it. And, usually we need to start in a safe place, either therapy or a tribe, right? Before we feel comfortable maybe talking to a boss, if we need to address that at another level, but always embrace, be aware and look inside. Do not be afraid to look inside, because we were taught to always serve everybody else. That's what Latinas are supposed to do, right? To serve everybody else. How about us? It's time to put ourselves first with no shame and no guilt. And I know that's easy to say and hard to do. To this day, I need to every day balance a little bit to not feel guilty, okay? To release and forgive myself for feeling guilt. It's a reality because that's very much embedded in who we are in our culture. So be aware, put yourself first, connect with how you feel, honor that. There is a reason why that feeling is there. If it's uncomfortable imbalance, is to help you heal and grow, and it's a stepping stone to what's next in your life. So that's the number 1. Number 2 is to pivot, because, okay, I'm going to look at that, but now I want to move out of that too, right? I want to heal that. So that's whatever works for you. This could be another 10 hours that I could talk about this, but you need to today think about a situation that makes you uncomfortable or that you feel there's an imbalance in you, and ask yourself, ask your heart, your soul, ask, what's the best way I can support myself with this? What's the best way? For me, it could be spending 1 hour each morning with myself in silence, going for a walk, putting sticky notes around the house that said, I am worthy, I deserve. I have sticky notes all over, and I love it. I love it because my kids see them too. So do what you need to, journal, whatever it is. Ask your heart, how can I best support myself today? That's the second. So become aware, pivot. How can I best support myself? And the third one, take an action. So this is not theory that we're talking about today. If you want to break the pattern, you have to take an action. The only way to break it, break the chain, break the pattern, do it differently, is to take an action, a micro step, whatever that is for you today.
Ooh, I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes. I'm gonna drop those gems on the chat too, because I know everyone was like, "Espérate." Whoa. So become aware, pivot, and take action. I'm gonna drop those on the chat so you can copy and paste those too. No worries. Oh, Valeria. Oh, these gems. So I have a couple of questions from the chat that I want to ask you. And this first one is so powerful. So I want to start with this one. So question number one, how did colonization affect you personally? And as a white Latina, do you think you have experienced less discrimination?
Okay. Yeah. So here's the thing. When people look at me, they think I come from a rich family. No, I don't. My father did not even go to high school. Okay. I come from a family of hardworking people. But then I had access to education. I worked really hard. But let's address your question. Colonization is a mindset. Colonization is still alive as long as it's still in the mindset of those who come from colonized countries. So people looked at me and they said, but how do you feel? You're white. You should be the colonizer. And I'm like, well, I was born in a colonized country, in a third world country, in a culture that was deemed inferior, right? So that's where I was born. It's not how you look, it's where you were born and what you heard and saw around you growing up. So I felt very, very small when I came to the US. Now, being white gave me a lot of privilege. It still does. I find that people hire me or, want to work with me because it's comfortable. Oh, bring the Latina, bring Valeria, because she's a Latina. Guess what? They are checking a box with me. And that bothers me because I'm very conscious of that because I realize they've been asking me, are you a woman of color? And if I say yes, they will check the box of, oh, she's a Latina and a woman of color. So now we check the box and we're done. We have a Latina who is a woman of color. Yeah.
Yes,
so,
let's call that out. Thank you. Thank you, Valeria. That's so
I do
powerful.
have a privilege. I do have a privilege. I learned that people feel more comfortable because I look this way, right? But then that gives me responsibility. And I thought I had it bad. When I came to US, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so hard being an immigrant and having an accent, and I need to look for a job and I need to interview with 50 companies. This is so hard. By writing this book, and this is not a race to see who had it hardest, because we do that a lot, right? Among different races and groups and communities in the US, we usually have this fight of, oh, who had it harder? Listen, we all come from trauma. Many of our communities of color, we come from trauma. It's not who had it harder, but honestly, I realized that I was in a position of privilege when I heard the stories of Afro-Latinas, and that I had it easier, honestly easier compared to them. And that opened my eyes by listening to stories of friends who I had for 10 years, Afro-Latina friends I had for 10 years in my life, that I had never, ever heard their stories because we don't talk about it, right? It's crazy. So the privilege that I have as a white Latina gives me the responsibility, and I take it seriously. I pay attention. Like if I'm in a job, I see, can we open another chair? Do we have enough Latino representation, particularly Afro-Latinos? When I go to a conference or an event, I look into that. That's what I do. So my goal is to be aware of, not in the victimhood of, oh, it's so hard for me as an immigrant Latina, but to say, listen, I have a privilege, it's real. And think about all of you have a privilege compared to somebody else. All of you. Just being here today, connecting through Wi-Fi from your home, wherever you are, having food is a privilege. So all of us have a privilege. How are we going to use it for somebody else?
I love that, because intersectionality is all about that, right? Like understanding in what areas do we connect, and that it is not a competition, but really understanding everyone else's experiences around our own, and understanding that there are different layers to what folks experience based on the power dynamics in the space, but also systems that are there. And one of the things that I talked about a lot was that I knew I was growing in my career since I moved to the US. porque I check a box, right? Like, I was not Afro-Latina. I was Latina, but I'm from Puerto Rico. So some assimilation and a lot of code switching that I was doing. Oh, she's a mom, so she's not an LGBTQ member, without like even giving me the opportunity to show up as my full self or tell my own story. So I love what you said, is like we all have privilege. Todos. We all have privilege in some way, form, or other, is making sure that we're using our power and privilege, whether it's small or large, to amplify the right voices, to have the opportunity to be in that space and then be like, oh yeah, cool, I'm here. Okay, so like this one and this one to here, and using those opportunities to amplify the voices that are missing in spaces. So I love that, and thank you. And I also want to like call out and name that you were very honest with, this is my power, and I've been learning, and I'm constantly learning, and part of being anti-racist and part of putting equity first is that doesn't matter if we experience discrimination and if we experience an ism, is that this is constant learning, so we become allies, and that we're amplifying the right people, stepping up and stepping back. So I love that.
Imagine our Latino collective, where we will be if we unite beyond our racial differences and all this division that we have going on. If we can really unite past that, being 30% of this country in 2060, imagine what that can do, not just for the US, for all of Latin America. Super powerful.
Mm-hmm. The change, like that systems change will have, but we have to uncolonize our mindset and have those conversations with ourselves, so we're ready to have those conversations with the people around us.
And help each other, yes.
Mm-hmm. So I have another question from the chat. How do you deal with pressures of success, especially as the first generation, and how does that look?
Well, I failed that test because I burnt out in 2016. But after that, so I failed. I had to fail to learn. I have to say that, wow, it took really loving who I am to advocate for myself, to set boundaries, and to sometimes not even fight it. Like, sometimes, yes, family has expectations and they say things, they say something, they throw that at the dinner table or on a call, whatever, when I'm in WhatsApp with my parents, they throw it, right? Like a little bit like this, but it hits you. And sometimes I just let it go. I'm like, that's fine. I love you guys, but it's your expectation. I learned to honor what do I want? What do I want? That's what I learned to listen to. What do I really want? And that's what I go after, to make myself happy, because for many years in my life, I made everybody else happy, right? My parents, my family, my husband, my kids, even my boss, everybody was absolutely happy, but I was miserable. So I had to turn the tables and say, how can I make myself happy? And start there, expectations. Yeah, because expectations are the shortest way to get disappointed. When you have expectations about what will happen, and you put a lot of expectations of yourself, even because it's so natural as a first gen to have expectations and go for more and want more. But sometimes, I had to learn to allow things to happen and to flow and to trust a lot more than to make things happen and to push. And that there is acceptance into that. Accept that I have no control over what will happen tomorrow, but I will flow with whatever is present to the best of my abilities at every moment and every day, rebalancing what's going on to make myself happy. So, and I do that every day. To me, that I come from a burnout, is a daily practice to stop and to say, am I happy? Am I putting myself first in my life? Because otherwise, what's the point,
Oh, yes, it gets very easy to be like, let me take care of others. Like, yeah. I can go into mom taking care of everyone. Mi abuela en Puerto Rico, my mom, like, ¿dónde está? Like, give me the list and I'll take care of everyone else. But it's so difficult to do that introspection and honoring ourselves and our needs. And I realized through a lot of therapy and reading books like Uncolonized Latinas, through my own journey of burnout, of constant failure, and embracing that failure. I have on my LinkedIn and my business card, like Paulette Piñero, recovering perfectionist.
Yeah.
Before
Yes.
everything else.
Perfectionist is an epidemic.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
yeah, we need to step out of the epidemic of perfectionism, particularly as Latinas and first generation, that we're supposed to make everybody happy and check all these boxes. Guess what? No, make yourself happy. What's the point otherwise? Yeah.
And it's so difficult, but it goes back to what you wrote in your book and what you've been telling us today. Like, we have to uncolonize our mindset. We have to be aware of the lack, unworthiness, and silence. We have to put into practice becoming aware, pivoting, and taking action. So I'm gonna drop a lot of those gems on the chat throughout the summit that you share with us, Valeria. I do want to ask you one more question, because you talked about burnout and being in that space. And one of the questions that I have from the chat is, what were some of those red flags that made you think you were burned out?
The red flags, which I ignored. I ignored the red flags. I had heart palpitation. I couldn't sleep at night. I was very irritable. I was angry all the time, reactive, very tired, and pushing myself past like migraines, working with migraines, to give you an idea. So I could take pills for migraine, and as soon as it receded a little bit, I kept working until crazy. I'm not sure how I'm even alive, okay, because it was crazy. But it goes back to being in sync with your sense of, I'm uncomfortable, this doesn't feel right, you know, paying attention to that. But if we are like walking brains, which I have been a walking brain for a long time, disconnected from my body, the body will tell you. From the neck down, you will know. It's in your body knows. It's the wisdom, the ancestral wisdom in the body. It will show you, the red flags will show up, you know, the stress, you know, the signs of stress, lack of sleep, headaches, all of those that I mentioned, it shows up. So, you know, some stress is good, but when you get to a point that you are not happy, so you have to immediately address it, immediately.
Wow. So we have a couple of minutes left. So I just want to make sure that I'm adding, I have other questions from the chat. So I want to ask this one. Someone on the chat was very vulnerable and shared their experience at work. And one, as they're sharing their experiences of when white men do things, they're great, okay, like, ooh, boss. But when you do similar things or are being assertive, you're considered aggressive. So someone is asking you, like, how do you handle that hidden racism? I would say it's pretty much racism, but how do you handle those hidden microaggressions and racism at work?
Or the bias. Yes, there is a bias. That if a man does it, he's a great leader, but then when we do it, but there is also a reality that as we learn to navigate new spaces and we're testing new waters, and you know, I love this woman, Millie is her name. She works in a bank, and she was sharing with me when I was doing the research for the book, how we either stay very quiet Latinas, or when we speak up, we have so many emotions that it comes out with a lot of emotions. And we know that this culture is not an emotional culture, right? It's a different type of culture. So it's more mental. So I would say the following. Number one, before having a conversation in a space that culturally feels different, meaning you're the only Latina in the room, I would have any conversation from a space of neutrality. If you need to cry or even journal and then burn it, you know, whatever you need to do to be in a neutral space when you speak up is key. Because when those emotions come up for people who are in a more mental culture, and for us who come from a culture of the heart and we let go of the emotions more easily, right? That's a cultural clash. So it's scary for them. They don't know what to do with it. So it's learning to, it's not changing your essence, but it's learning to wear a different suit for the occasion. So which Valeria am I going to bring to this meeting? Who is the audience? And how am I going to address that in an assertive way? However, yes, I have seen many Latinas who are assertive and still they have these toxic environments where they are labeled the angry Latina. So if that's the case, think it through, evaluate, but it could be time for you to move on to a culture that accepts who you are. It could be time to move on. So try first with being more assertive, putting the emotions, burning the emotions out before going into those meetings. But if it continues to happen, then you may be in a space that is not accepting who you are, and there is a better place for you. You deserve a better place, who loves you and accepts who you are as you are.
Oh, become aware, pivot, and take action.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I dropped those gems. I took notes for those 3 things that uncolonize your day-to-day limiting beliefs on the chat too, because exactly what you just said. Building that awareness will allow you to make better decisions and identify if this is the right space for you, so you can pivot and take action.
Yeah, the component of self-awareness too is like, look back and see who was I, because we also make mistakes and we need to be compassionate with us. I've been angry in meetings too. It didn't help me. I've been emotional in meetings too. In others, I was also silent. None of those worked for me. So we need to really look within with compassion, not judgment, compassion, and continue pivoting, because we are coming from, we have a cultural clash. That's what we have here going on, right? We are accessing spaces of power and we come with our differences from our culture. So we are still learning. So the compassion to keep pivoting, but also the awareness and the self-love to say enough is enough. I deserve a better place.
Oh, gracias, Valeria. Thank you so much for, oh my God, you need to get Uncolonized Latinas. You need to get it. I'm telling you, it's amazing. To learn more about Uncolonized Latinas, connect with Valeria, learn about her speaking, and to join the Rising Together movement that I joined.
Let's all rise together.
Yes, let's rise together.